You on out there? All right, let's get this thing moving.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
All right, recording. All right. Well, we're finally here.
Yes, sir.
Finally doing it. Matt, I feel like I was saying your name wrong. Is it Matt Neier or Matt Neier?
It's Matt Neier, actually. Neier,
Okay.
yes.
How's Auburndale treating you? I mean, we're missing you out there. I don't know what to tell you. Shoot.
It's been going well at Auburndale. It's definitely a different animal than it was being over at Showtime. But yeah, we're going from having, a big show every month or so over at Showtime to seemingly almost every week.
Well, you guys have the summer break too, don't you? You guys don't run all the way through.
July. This year we're just taking July off.
See, it's always because as much as I love racing, I kind of wish there were other tracks that do that because you get in the car in July, August, and you're sitting there, it's 110 degrees, and you're like, oh shit. I'm like,
yeah, well,
you don't want to be doing that.
It's nice and air conditioned up where I am. So the only thing that gets to me about it is it just rains so damn much.
Yeah,
during that time of year. So
yeah. Those the rainouts hit you hard. So when did you start doing commentating?
So I've always wanted to do it since I was a little kid.
Right.
I'm sure I drove my parents nuts with my little NASCAR diecast on the floor. Doing races, but I started in January of 2021, actually.
Really?
Yeah. So I got really into like the Florida short track racing scene. I moved here in 2014 for work, and I worked in theater and live entertainment for the better part of a decade. And so I was a showrunner, so I worked nights and weekends. So I didn't really get to do a whole lot of racing. I was living in Sarasota, and the one or two opportunities I got to have a Saturday night off and try and get out to DeSoto Speedway, it rained every single time. So the first race I actually went to in the state of Florida was at East Bay in would have been late 2015.
All right.
I got a Saturday off, and everywhere else rained out, and I wound up there. But once I got out of that job and I started teaching theater, so I had my weekends back. So I started out going to DeSoto because that was close by, and that was the year of the Sunshine State Challenge Series. So I started hearing about these two other tracks that were part of that, 417 RIP,
Yeah.
down in Punta Gorda,
Rest in peace, Punta Gorda.
and Auburndale up in Winter Haven. And so I went down to 417, I had a really great time there, and then I went up to Auburndale the next week, which was a bit of a drive back then, and that was a lot of fun. So I started going to 417 a lot. And then coming up on the month of June, it was my birthday weekend, and everybody rained out. And I was by myself, I had just gotten dumped, I was sad, and I was like, I just wanted to go to the races. And so I'm thumbing through Facebook and whatnot, and that's when I found Showtime. And they were racing, so I drove up, and I remember the first time I got to Showtime, and this would have been probably 17, maybe, yeah, 2017. And so he'd been open for like 5 years at that point. And I got there and got out of my car and was like, did I make a mistake? Like, this place kind of looks like a dump. And so, but I went in.
It still does.
And, but I went in and there were a ton of cars in the pits. It was a really great night of racing. I had so much fun, and Robert came out at intermission and started talking about all the stuff they were doing to the track, and that's when I learned, because I wasn't from here, I didn't know anything about Sunshine or anything like that. So I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. He's bringing this place back. So I started splitting my time going to either 417 or to Showtime. It was the same distance, just in opposite directions from where I was. And I remember it was end of 2020, beginning of January 21, when he posted that Jake Wilson was leaving, and they were looking for somebody to take over. And I texted my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and was like, hey, I just saw this. And she goes, well, that's the dream, isn't it? And I was like, well, yeah. And she goes, do it. Try it. See if, she's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I was like, you know what? All right. So I sent an email. Okay. Never done this before. I'm a fan. I'm at your racetrack all the time. I went to school for theater and live entertainment, so I have no problem being in front of people and talking. So just like, give me a shot. And so,
See, you always stick out for me from other commentators because, first of all, you're fantastic up in the booth.
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You've always been great up in the booth. I remember when I first started going out to Showtime and watching, you were, even though I could barely hear you because of the PA system, the little bit I could hear.
Every short track has that problem, but yes.
Every short track has that problem, but even I could hear, I'm like, okay, you can definitely tell when an announcer's really putting in the effort, and I could definitely tell with you also because of the stuff you do you go beyond that. You don't just do the announcing for the races. I love your pit interviews. I think stuff like that. I think more guys need to do that because I've said this a lot, and I'm not the only driver who thinks this. I think most people can agree. To get people to come out to the short tracks and watch, just get fans to come out and consistently watch, you need to have some sort of storyline, or people need to know the drivers. Because, I mean, even if you look at something like NASCAR, like NASCAR, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who, when their driver wrecks out, they just stop watching the race. So they care more about seeing their driver do well rather than actually watching the race. So if you're out there watching a street stock race and you don't know any drivers, you're just watching it. It might be a good race, but you're going to be kind of, most people are going to be like, all right, well, it's whatever, it's a good race, but who cares? But if you're watching it and the guy in the lead hasn't won in 6 years and it's 3 to go, then now it's more interesting. Or the two guys battling for 5th have been going at it and they just wrecked each other last week and now it's round 2, like that kind of thing. And we don't get that out because everyone in the pits knows that stuff. We all know that stuff because we all know each other and we all talk to each other, but not as many people in the grandstands know, unless they're literally out there every single week. So, I mean, that was half the reason for doing all this, for starting this podcast, was to get word out to fans about just different stuff that's going on between the drivers. Like, there's so many interesting stories I've heard. I can't tell you how many times I've been at Showtime until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, listening to like LJ Grimm or somebody telling some wild ass story from 15 years ago, and being like, dude, how like you got to tell people about this. Like you hear that kind of stuff, and it makes it so much more interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And the interviews actually came when I started. They brought me out to come audition, and I did 2 street stock heat races and a Crown Vic figure 8. Jake wasn't there that night. For whatever reason, Austin Griffiths, who was the announcer at Citrus for a long time, he's at Alltech now, he was there. And so I did those 2 races, and then I left for the night. And I was like, oh, well, like I kept my lineup printouts and everything. I was like, this is going to be the night I got to announce at Showtime. And then the next morning I got a phone call from Sherry Phillips, who was the track manager at the time. And it's like, hey, would you come back next week? And so I did, and I hung out with Jake for a few weeks, and he really kind of showed me the ropes. But yeah, the interviews came from Sherry's son Daniel was the race director at the time, and that was actually his brainchild that he wanted me to do. And so like I would show up, and he would have all the questions and everything for me. We're going to talk to this person and this person. Okay, which it's funny because I on a microphone in front of hundreds of people every weekend. I'm actually not that extroverted. So like you put me in a room full of people I don't know, I'm probably not going to say a whole lot. So that kind of forced me to go out and start to get to know some of these guys. Yeah. And so when he left later that season, it was just me by myself. And I just continued to do it. It's just something I've always continued to do. I think it's important because I want people to get to know the drivers. And it's also, like you said, it helps bring some of those stories out. And I mean, I'll search for somebody. If I've got somebody who I know, like, for example, last night I interviewed Jeff Schofield at Auburndale. Jeff Schofield can be a polarizing figure at times. That's somebody I want to talk to. Because people are gonna be like, oh, cool, Jeff Schofield. And there's gonna be people like, Jeff Schofield.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's people who are gonna say and interesting is not the word they'd use.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing is I do that, and I always try and make sure I grab. I always want to talk to at least one person from whoever the big class is that night. Yeah. But I try and make sure I grab somebody from one of the grassroots divisions as well. I talked to Aaron Ashley last night, who's a mini stock driver. And this season, what I've been trying to do is I've also been trying to get one of the kids. We have so many kids at Auburndale that race.
Yeah, because you guys are still running the, not the Bandoleros. What is it over there?
Oh, we got Bandoleros, Legends, and Mini Cups.
The Mini Cups, yeah.
And I've got kids that race Crown Vics. I've got kids that race Pro Late models. So I've been trying to do that as well.
Then you got Colton Buddis, who is like up
yes.
here. I'm not sure. Were you keeping up with the USEC stuff that was happening over the weekend?
Yeah, I actually last Saturday when they were at Auburndale, Steve and I knew about it,
Oh, yeah.
and I knew we couldn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
And when I talked to him at intermission, I was just like, oh, well, I know there's some big things on the horizon for you. Blah, blah. So, but yeah, I was glad to see that worked out for him.
That kid is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, because you've seen, it's weird because obviously nowadays it's pretty common to see younger kids in late models or sprint cars or whatnot. Well, not so much in USAC, I guess. I don't know many younger kids who ran the USAC Silver Crown stuff.
The youngest driver in USAC since Jeff Gordon.
But how are you gonna? First of all, he's gonna be in NASCAR.
Oh, eventually someday.
That's
yes.
already.
That's
I feel
kind
like
of a
already.
given.
Everybody
Yeah.
knows that's gonna happen. He's got the backing. He's got, at least from Florida, everybody knows him.
Yeah.
Like he's a fantastic driver. It seems like anything he hops in, he just goes. Like
Yeah.
Didn't he break a record or something on Friday at the Silver Crown race? I feel like I heard something about that.
I might have. I didn't see too much about that. We've been moving. We just bought a house, so
Yeah.
I've missed a lot of racing outside of what I've been doing.
I've been a little out of the loop the past few months, so,
But,
I try to keep track. But
yeah, but I remember Colton because when I started there at Showtime in 21, that was when he was starting to get into the non-wing sprint car.
yeah,
And he could only race at Showtime. He was too young
Was
for
that
any other
not-
tracks.
one of the first races, was that the one where he got into that wreck on the backstretch with oh Lord, I forgot her name. It was a non-wing car. It was a New Year's Eve race, I believe.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that
You
was
remember
actually
what I'm talking about.
That was actually because he won the championship that year, and it was
Yeah.
the following race of the next year, so it would have been 2020. I can't remember who.
I can't remember who it was. I just remember seeing that wreck because we'd finished up our race just before that, and I was sitting up in the back, along the back stretch towards turn 3, and I just see a car explode in the middle of turn 3. I'm like, what's that?
Yeah, it was one of those because he wound up being suspended for a bit because the car owners got into it in the pits.
I do remember that part.
Yeah, I always hear about the fights in the pits. I rarely see them.
See, that's
But,
a weird thing.
yeah.
There was, I think it was from the Chili Bowl this year, there was one of the track workers, or maybe it was the manager, I'm not quite sure. He said, we need to do it like hockey fights. And they've been saying that in NASCAR too, is like, let them beat it out and then separate them when it stops. Because like there's a lot of people like, there's not going to be any fighting in the pits. I'm like, there's going to be fighting in the pits no matter what you do. I'm sorry. It's road rage at 120 miles an hour. It's going to happen. Like, you can't prevent it. Though, I mean, people get in the fights over dumb. There's some times where it's unnecessary, I guess is a nice way to put it. There's a lot of times where it is, though.
Yeah, I mean, I've had it happen in the winner's circle in front of me.
Yeah, I believe that.
I don't get into it. I just back up.
Yeah, back up.
I just back up and let them go, and I just look at
I learned
the marshals be like, somebody want to?
I learned that the hard way in high school, where it's like, whether at high school or at a party or something, someone getting a fight, back up. Don't. It's like a hurricane where it just moves through. Like,
Yeah.
like you got to back up and be like, all right, But they get crazy out there, especially when you get the bigger groups. Like, I think I can't remember who I was with, but we were joking one night, like, let's take the two biggest families out there and put them in a fight and see who wins. And we're like, what's the two biggest families we think of? And they were like, oh, maybe we'll get the Larsons, and like we're trying to think of another one, try to get them going at each other. But do you have can I see your opener for a moment? So,
Sure thing.
but
This Budweiser bottle opener, I won because I answered a trivia question on Twitter at DeSoto Speedway in
there you go.
2017.
what do you think? Actually, 'cause you brought up DeSoto. What do you think of how the Freedom Factory's been recently?
I haven't been out there to catch a race I haven't been out there all this year. I think Tour Destruction last November, I think was the last time we were out there.
Right.
Well, I live just not terribly far from there.
Nice.
So I'm glad to see that track back open and that there's racing going on. Because everything out in that area is turning into housing development or
Yeah,
condo
that's the
development.
scary thing.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that track, I recently listened to the Dale Jr.'s show with Cletus McFarland.
I just listened to that
Yeah,
too.
and they thrive on their own out there without short track racing, but I think it's great that they open it up when they do to have the events like the Big League and the URA races that come through. And
I think that especially having Ricky Brooks run all that stuff, I think that's one of Cletus' smartest decisions. I think Ricky, I've never met him personally. I mean, I've seen him during drivers' meetings. I've never talked to him personally. I'd love to meet him one day. Love to have him on here. But he really seems to run stuff extraordinarily well. Every time we go down to Freedom Factory, when he's running the show, it just boom, 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 runs smooth. You know, there's no scheduling bullshit. There's nothing like that. You don't really like the racing's generally good. Well, some of the sportsman races get kind of antsy. I shouldn't say that. And a couple of them they get a little crazy down there, but for the most part, like everything runs smooth, and like he seems to be one of the best promoters around here. I know you probably know more about this than I have because I've been kind of seen a few articles about it, but you probably know more about what's been going on with the Cordeal situation.
I actually
because I was trying to figure that out.
I don't know what happened.
Because I know
the end result. I don't know what caused it. I haven't.
Because that seems like a match made in heaven. You take Cordeal and put Ricky Brooks. Like that's 2 and 2 makes 4. That's perfect. That seems like a perfect match. I don't know the whole deal with it though. I've been kind of on the outside looking in, just like seeing. All I saw is that hey, there's something going on, and then all of a sudden Ricky Brooks is out. It's like, well,
I'm sure there's more to it that we'll learn in the coming days. But
I want to see more because I'm curious. So.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what happened. But no, and I think from the beginning when I saw that Cletus had purchased DeSoto Speedway, he said, and I think it was like the second video they made out there with the properties. He's like, circle track racing's not our thing, but like if somebody else wants to come in and run it and rent the track from us, they were going to be open to that.
Well, that's the smartest way to do it.
Yeah, sure. I think for those guys definitely.
Because I think that's a lot of I've said this before. And I think many people have thought this before about a lot of track owners. Is track owners need to be track owners, not running the track. Where make your general rules and layout and whatnot, but you need to have someone below you enforcing stuff. It makes it a lot easier. So.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought as a fan in the stands, like, oh, if I ran the racetrack, I would do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And then from working in racing, I have learned that being a track promoter or a track owner is a job I never ever want to have.
In your ass.
I never want to do that. I don't envy those guys at all.
That's why I always like. It's always been weird because I'll be honest, like there have been times where certain owners, whether it be Citrus owner or Yoho or other people, where I've been like, why would you make that decision? But I tend to always be like, okay, maybe there's something I don't know. Mm-hmm. Especially with something like when you come to Showtime where it's leased. He doesn't even own it, it's just leased. It's leased property from the state. And in that case, there may be clauses that say, hey, you can't do, like I know I was talking to someone about this the other day about, the pits have horrible drainage and every time it rains out there, the pits flood and whatnot. Like, well, why don't you just build drainage? I'm like, well, maybe he can't. Maybe there's something in the lease. You can't modify the land that much, and yada, yada, yada. Like, I always try to see, like, okay, maybe there's something I don't know. I don't automatically jump to, okay, well, he's just, like, I think it's stupid to jump to, oh, he's an idiot, or, oh, he just doesn't care. I always try to think it through, like, okay, there's got to be something else. Like, that's not what it is. People jump to that conclusion very quick, I feel like.
Yeah, lots of keyboard warriors like to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people also don't realize how much money is wrapped up into it, and how much do you really want? And we saw an unfortunate example down in Punta Gorda, where the Gentrys built a world-class facility and then it just got taken away from them.
That place I was shocked when it got shut down because I'd only been down there a handful of times, but I remember going down there. It was packed. People loved it. And when I heard that place got shut down, the only one that was more shocking when it got shut down was East Bay. East Bay, that was like unbelievable. I'm like, that track had massive, massive sprint car races. Larson raced there a bunch of times. Like, you have all these big names there, and then they go out of business.
Well, it just goes to show this is it's a very difficult. Roger Penske said the best way to make a small fortune in racing is to start with a big one. And that applies to more than just building race cars.
Oh, good. I can't tell you. I can't tell you how many friends I've had. Because when I was in high school, I used to take, I was the racing guy. Nobody else was. So I used to take friends out. Yeah, I used to take friends out to Showtime to go watch races, and they love it. And then when I started racing, like, how much money do you make? I'm like, make? You don't make any money. I'm like, I always tell them that. I'm like, unless you're in like NASCAR, like top, and even then,
and even most of those guys aren't making it either. Yeah.
It's like they're not like multimillionaires. Most of them, like they make a living, but they're not like crazy. Like,
yeah, no, unless you're Kyle Larson's doing all right for himself, but
well, yeah, when you pull in, what was that? It was on Australia. It was the biggest dirt track payout ever. It was like $600,000 or something ridiculous. But if anyone's gonna win it was gonna be him. Like that guy's, I think he's part of that. I've had a theory recently about where kind of NASCAR is heading, because right now there's a lot of talk about, like, you're getting a lot of these younger drivers who either they have the money or the name of the sponsorship backing, and then those are the guys who are getting picked up for Truck and Xfinity. And a lot of people are like, well, you need to start scouting short tracks again. You need to start sending guys out to New Smyrna. You need to start sending guys out to, I don't know, Rockingham, so places like that, and start scouting these young guys rather than just going for whoever has the biggest paycheck. And I think, as much as I want that to happen, I don't think it's going to, just because of the nature of how much, even if you just look at the charter cost, that's not going to happen.
No.
Because it's so much money. As much as I want that to happen, maybe there's a way to figure it out. Maybe the answer is like outside investors. And now you got Michael Jordan, all those guys always say that. Maybe that's the answer to it. But I think most people agree that the more people we have from grassroots short track stuff up in there, the better the racing would be, because most of us understand the respect for another driver, because, hey, we're the ones paying and building the car.
Right.
So I can't speak for anyone else, but if I get wrecked, I get annoyed not just because I got wrecked, but because, great, now I got to spend however many hours fixing it. Now I got to spend however much money fixing it.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the feeling most people have. That's why, we getting wrecks out there, even in the Vic class. I know people like to say, the Vic class is like a demo derby. In my opinion, I won't get into it. In my opinion, it's not, comparing it to other short track stuff. But most of us out there at Showtime, like, we're pretty clean with each other. We get into it, a little racing incident stuff, but it's very rare that you see people just go out there and just really throw someone into the wall hard, because we understand, like, okay, this guy's got to pay for this. This guy's got to work on it all week. I mean, don't get me wrong, you get the handful, you get your one or two guys who are kind of like, oh, fuck it. Yeah. but it's very rare, so, which is fortunate, but I think it's something that a lot of the younger guys who are, I say younger guys, I probably sound like an asshole because I'm 21, but I'm saying younger guys because they are my age, younger guys who are coming up into that level. People would rather see more guys in the short track scene coming up into that, which is how it used to be, but it's kind of hard nowadays.
Well, I mean, there's always been drivers that were there because they could foot the bill, but I think the cost has risen so much now that's, and the sponsorship isn't what it used to be, because, I remember as a kid, my favorite driver growing up was Terry Labonte, and Terry Labonte drove the Kellogg's car. Yeah. And very rarely was it not the Kellogg's car. Now these guys have a different sponsor every week.
Other than Kyle Larson, and his sponsor's just Hendrick, so that doesn't count.
So
that's even harder, like, because people are talking about that on the NASCAR side of it, of how hard it is for those big NASCAR teams to get sponsors. I'm like, it's impossible. If you have a short track car, it is impossible to get anyone to pay. Yeah. Like, most of my sponsors, they don't, other than one or two of them, they don't pay me. It's usually they'll throw me some help with certain parts, maybe small stuff. But and I think most people's stuff is like that, or it's just their own companies. Yeah, it's guys who own their own companies. They just throw it on the race car. Like, it is damn near impossible to get a sponsorship for like a street stock. Like, I can't imagine it. So
I will say though, however, the success of NASCAR relates to the success of short track racing. That's because true. It's like, it's like the NFL is to, high school football.
Correct.
And so I remember it was a week or two after the first All-Star in North Wilkesboro. And I was walking out of the tower at the end of the night at Showtime, and there were these two people, and there was a couple, and I'd seen them there when I was walking around during practice, and they had the North Wilkesboro shirts on, like the big graphic, massive things. And they were standing around by the flag stand, and so when I came up off the track, they said to me, "This was cool. We didn't know places like this existed."
Yeah.
Like, so that, we can't forget that NASCAR drawing new eyes to the sport of racing is going to benefit.
Well, it's a circle. Level. Yeah. You get because most people who, I mean, let's be honest, most people who go to short tracks are just people who are fans of bigger racing who are like, oh, I can go see local stuff.
Yeah.
So, but if you go see bigger stuff and go, hey, oh, there's local stuff I can go see, because that's been kind of the talk. I feel like that's a big thing that not a lot of people are talking about, is some of these smaller short tracks really pushing to get their name out there. Because I I've had plenty of ideas, and there's many people who've had plenty of ideas on how you could take something like Showtime and really blow it up. Like really, really blow it up. Because I think the place you need to target is people my age or younger. Because that's the audience you need to get. The guys who are already NASCAR fans, you got them. Like, they'll come out, they'll come watch a race. You don't need to worry about them. Like, you need to go, people, my age or younger in high school, like, hey, Saturday night, come out to the track, $15.
Yeah.
So you're like, that's really the demographic you need to target. The question is just how. Like, do you just do social media? Do you do, I'm sure there's plenty of ideas that other people have that would work.
Yeah.
I'm not the expert on it. But.
Yeah, no, I'm not a marketing guy, but yeah, I'm starting to see a lot more younger people in the stands too.
Which is good.
Which is very exciting.
It's promising.
Yeah.
I think because that's always been the thing is like short track, the common thing is short track racing has been dying over the past 15 years. That's what everybody says. I somewhat disagree. I think social media has helped short tracks a lot.
It's
certain aspects.
Well, and not just for racing, in many different areas, social media is also our best asset and our worst enemy at the same time.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I've seen a lot more younger people get involved, a lot more younger drivers, a lot more younger people in the pits, younger people in the stands. And like when I interviewed a Bandolero racer a couple weeks ago who's 5, and it's, but one of the things that comes with short track racing is the community.
Everyone knows
aspect of it. So that is something that's lacking in our 21st century age here, I think, in a lot of ways. So
I think in short track, everyone's pretty. I think everyone kind of like knows each other. Everyone's kind of with each other, at least within like certain classes or certain tracks. Like I'll admit I haven't been to Auburndale in a while, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But at Showtime, at least with all the Vic guys, like I'm pretty much friendly. We're pretty much all friendly with each other. We all help each other out, and I love racing with those guys.
Yeah,
so,
and it's even between seeing the same people that are in the stands every week, the same families or the racers all working together. And I, as someone who came in as an outsider, it was a very accepting community, and it was very.
Have you ever thought about jumping in a car at any point?
So
you have to have thought about it.
Oh, I've thought about it my whole life.
I mean, come on.
So I have wanted to get in a race car. I always thought I would wind up racing because I never thought in a million years I'd ever.
I could see you running a street stop.
Ever be an announcer? Like I didn't think that would ever happen for me. Like when I was a kid, and my uncles used to take me to the racetrack. I was like, we went to Auburndale Speedway in Ovid, Michigan.
That sounds familiar.
It's blown up huge lately.
Are you talking about, is it Oswego?
No, Owasso.
Owasso.
In Ovid, Michigan. Oswego's in New York.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah,
But,
Oswego's the New York one, so.
Yeah, but no, Owasso, and there was an announcer there by the name of Matt Prayer. We called him Hollywood. He's been around. He was the announcer for CRA Super Series for a long time after that. He's done some TV stuff. I know he was a pit reporter for the Big League a year or so ago. But he was a fabulous announcer. Hilarious, but also really good, really dedicated, had all the sponsor info and everything off those cars. Somebody I try to imitate a lot myself. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And my family was like, well, that'd be fun. But like, those guys have those jobs for 30 years. And like, that's not. And so I was like, I always thought that I would wind up racing. And I had my uncle on my dad's side raced. Yeah. In the 70s when he started racing, he's a Ford master mechanic. So he was wrenching on cars from the time he was, old enough to hold a hammer. And he raced what the equivalent today would, I guess, be like a V8 Warrior on the dirt. He was a dirt guy at Mount Pleasant Speedway in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, which is a track that's still there.
I was about to say, that's another one that sounds familiar.
And it was basically, it's similar to like the Crown Vic stuff. Stock car, knock the windows out of it, rip the interior out, cage and seat, and we're going.
Right.
And he raced that for a few years. He won a couple of races. And then when I was in middle school, he actually came out of retirement and ran enduros at Whittemore Speedway, which is a paved track, quarter mile. Somebody traded in a 76 Mercury Montego on, we'll give you $1,000 or whatever for whatever junk you haul in, trade-in deal at the dealership you worked at. And he bought it from the dealership for $20 to do the paperwork and built an enduro car out of it. And this is back in the days when you had the V8 enduro cars. There'd be 90 cars on the track. And he did that for a handful of years. And we did manual scoring, where you did two guys sitting there counting laps every time it goes by.
You got a couple pads, a couple numbers.
To track the laps. But no, he had He got in a wreck and destroyed the original fuel tank in the car. So he put a fuel cell in it, and he did not. They ran 250 laps, and he did not have enough fuel to finish the race. So they'd have to pit halfway through. So obviously, no radios in an enduro car. So the rule, so what he came up with was he had me make a sign that said go Uncle Rick, whatever. When the cars would pull out and line up for the start, I would hold it up and he would wave at me to show me that he had seen it, and I counted laps. And when we got to lap 150 or whatever what it was, I was just supposed to hold up and wave the sign until he pulled off the track to pit.
I mean, that's how they did it. That's how they did it.
I
mean,
it worked. It worked. But no, so I always thought, and I played every EA Sports, Papyrus, NASCAR game that there was, Gran Turismo.
Real Ross Chastain over
I would sit and that's how I learned honestly about cars and got my love of cars in general, was sitting on Gran Turismo and learning what all the different adjustments do and whatnot. And
Well, that's another thing that's interesting is you part of this. I'm going to sound like an asshole again because I'm saying new generation. Well, I'm in that generation, but I'm saying new generation of drivers who a lot of guys are getting the William Byron style of grew up on a sim rig and now they're hopping in cars. I'm not sure if there's any you might know if there's any Cars Tour guys who started in sim and jumped into Cars Tour or something like that.
Oh, it's happened. A number of those guys have, and I didn't get into iRacing until 2020.
Yeah, I've been meaning. I want to build a rig
because I couldn't afford it. But
hey, that's the cost is crazy.
But yeah, anyway, back to it. So I always thought I would be in a race car.
Man.
And then the announcer thing happened, and I love it. I don't think I could ever be a weekly racer.
You can do it.
I don't want the money and the time and all that, but I have had offers to drive Crown Vics,
just hop in one of
mini
Marty's
stocks, and I jokingly play it off and say, "Oh, my wife won't let me do that," which is a lie, and I'm outing myself now. She just told me I'm not allowed to run figure eight.
He's allowed to run it.
So
let him run. Come on.
And I've actually had I won't name the driver. Actually, somebody offered me to go test their A mod, and I was like, I have no business being in a car like that, having never been in a race car before. But I think eventually I will. I do want to at least a time or two go ride around in the back in a Crown Vic or a mini stock just to have that experience.
Hop on one of Marty's cars. He'd let you. I'm giving you permission.
Marty's a good guy. I'm sure what he is. I have a Crown Vic that I drive in the street, and I've bought parts from Marty before.
Yeah, I was about to say, you already got a Vic. So.
Yeah, I already got.
You can tear that one
My
down.
wheels came from Marty. But yeah, no, it's something I do definitely want to do. I don't, like I said, I don't ever see myself leaving the booth to go be a racer, but or run. But I could see myself getting borrowing somebody's Crown Vic or mini
It's funny
stock
because
for
I
a
kind of
night.
have an opposite.
Yeah.
Stop for a second.
Oh.
So had to take a little break there. Some technical difficulties, just checking a few things, but
Yeah.
I don't remember where we left off quite, to be honest. But I did want to ask you, because correct me if I'm wrong, UARA is coming back to Auburndale next
Saturday.
Next Saturday.
April
So
26th. Yep.
I'm personally a big fan of the sportsman class, and particularly of that series. Do you see that, because I was talking about this with someone, do you see that class, the sportsman class, replacing maybe late models at short tracks at any point?
I think the sportsman, it's a good, well, I say budget friendly compared to, trying to run a super
Budget
late
friendly
model,
compared
to like a super late model.
This is why part of the reason why I was
yeah.
asking is because they have their shock rule and stuff like that. It makes it a lot more friendly towards maybe like me or you wanting to go out and run it. I mean, sportsmans are so much more affordable. Late models have gotten to that point where you basically, it's a $100,000 a year hobby at that point. So
Yeah.
Sportsmans are a lot different now. So.
Yeah, and I think because the big thing it's got going for it is the budget stuff, but also I see it running all over the place.
Yes.
They run them everywhere.
This is part of the reason why I brought
yeah,
that up.
so you can, anytime you have a class, at least in as a layperson's observation, who's never owned a race car, anytime you have a class where you can go to multiple different tracks without really having to do a whole lot to the car, that's key to being a successful class. That's one of the reasons these Crown Vics have been so successful across the country.
Yes, because other than one or two tracks, it's rules are the same for sportsmen, the same way with VIX too, other than a handful of tracks.
Yeah.
Which honestly, some of that's going to change soon. Like I know recently, as far as we go with the VIX stuff, I recently saw, I can't remember the name of it. There's a convention they do up in Indianapolis every year.
Oh yeah, PRI, yeah.
PRI, thank you. And there was somebody showing off composite bumpers for the VIX.
Yeah, I've seen
and like
those.
composite body stuff. And I was like, people kind of brought up like, oh, well, why do you run that? It needs to be stock. And I'm like, eventually it's going to not be. With most classes, if you look at like pure stocks, when pure stocks start off,
That was the example I was going to go with.
yes,
Yep.
is pure stock. Like you can't prevent it. Like eventually it's going to get to a point. With stuff like that, it just makes, for me at least, as a driver, I would rather have a composite body, not because of some sort of advantage, but literally just because being out sheet metal is fucking insane, and I hate doing it.
Well, also, and this is the automotive parts guy in me. These things are everywhere right now,
yeah,
but they don't make them anymore.
correct.
So the day's going to come when this is going to get hard to find.
Well, supposedly they're going to make them again. There was a little
they've been
thing.
saying that for years.
Yeah, I know, but I know. But hey, I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
If they, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? If they came out with like a 2026 Ford Crown Victoria, like would they allow that to run?
I don't know.
It's a Crown Vic.
Depend on how similar it is to what's out there now.
I doubt. I would be interesting.
But yeah, and that's the thing we're seeing with the pure stocks mainly is you've got all these 70s and 80s era cars.
So when you're gonna kind of move,
And I think
further.
in the end, what's going to happen, the way that class continues, and I would love for someone who knows more about it than me to weigh in, but I have not seen a whole lot of brand new built pure stocks.
there's very
few of them. What I've seen are the same pure stocks that have been around for the last 30 years.
Same frame. They just completely maybe have been rebuilt 2 or 3 times.
And I think in the end, within the next decade, if that class is still around, it's going to be 602 crate motor class.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting to that point where even that body style, you can't use it anymore because you can't find the bodies.
Yeah.
You can't find that stuff. I mean, it's so... I mean, I guess we got good fab guys, that's one thing, but you're starting to get to that point where you kind of got to move into the 602. Actually, yeah, you're probably right about the 602. That makes sense.
Because that's a motor you can just drop in.
Yeah, you just drop it in and go. That's another thing I like about the Sportsman's is dropping it is crate motor class only. So, because that's always the thing, that's if you look at, again, late models of Sportsman's, like I originally, when I got into racing, my end goal was one day to run late models. That has since changed, and now I want to run Sportsman's because after looking at it, as much as like late models, that's seen as like that's the cream of the crop. If you can make it into late models, like you're one of the top guys out there. You've really got it down. You can really drive, but the cost is so high. It's like at that point, I'll just run a Sportsman.
Yeah.
So,
and
and you got great drivers in the Sportsman class too. You got, I mean, just to pick a few, you got obviously Dodge Carver. I mean. That seems to be the obvious pick right there.
Yeah, all
Dodge,
those guys. Daniel Webster,
Webster's
Sozio,
fantastic. Sozio, Anderson's pretty good. Like they all run. It seems like any one of them can win any week.
Yeah, and
Except for when Dodge is there, then just Dodge wins.
But I'm looking forward to that race next week. The Sportsman races I've seen they've all been pretty good. That class can get rough.
Oh, it can get rough
on the bull rings.
Oh, it can get rough.
But which is a lot of people's complaint. But
that last race they had at Freedom Factory that I watched was nuts. It was. I think they had like 14 cautions, which is why I always say people always make fun of the Vic class. Say, oh, it's crazy caution. I'm like, man, we had like most of our races last season. Obviously last season's a little short because of the hurricanes, but most of our races last season were really clean. Like
we had 2 yellows. We ran 30 laps for Crown Vics last night. We had 2 cautions.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so people always say that, they're like, oh, the VIX is just wreck derby, caution fest. And
it can be, but any class can be that way.
Exactly. That's
yeah,
what
you get enough people upset at each other, it's going to happen.
Well, people always attribute that to the Vic class, is they always go like, oh, those are the derby guys. Those are the guys who, all they do is wreck each other. And I'm like, well, I've watched street stock races where there's 17 cautions and it ends with 3 cars. I remember a particular street stock race with only 3 cars out there where 2 to go on a restart, another guy spun another guy out of turn 2. I'm like, there's 3 cars on track. What are you gonna do? But there's plenty of that, so it's bothered me to an extent. I'm not gonna say it. Every class has racing incidents and wrecking, and it just always seemed weird to me that people specifically focus on the VIX. And I don't know why. Like, it always seemed weird to
You're
me.
going to see more yellows when you've got a class that's got more inexperienced drivers in it.
That's true, the
But-
inexperienced part. They're also, in my opinion, I'm gonna get some shit for this one. But they can be more difficult to drive than people think, because if you look, I gotta explain myself now because people are probably thinking, what the fuck? But if you look at something like a street stock or a late model or something, those are purpose built as race cars. They are built to turn as good as possible. You have actual racing tires. With VIX, it's not a purpose built for racing.
Yeah.
We're basically just ripping everything out, putting a cage in it, and maybe one or two small things. You know, we could put an aftermarket camera bolt in at Showtime in most tracks, and there's like a handful of things. But it's not a purpose-built race car, and they weigh so much, and that, to an extent, in my mind at least, makes them harder to drive than certain street stocks, even though they aren't faster. So,
Yeah, and it's, you know, and I've got one of these that I drive on the street, and that car, and this is the way Marty Neier has described it to me. It doesn't have, it's a great car for people to learn in because it doesn't have a crazy amount of horsepower, but it's got enough that if you drive over your head, it bites you.
that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And, of course, Marty said that.
Yeah.
I've had the Marty talks. I've had some Marty talks in my time.
Yeah, but the biggest difference, even with these, my brother-in-law just did the Cletus McFarland driving experience with these guys over at Freedom Factory. And then he's like, man, you could just hold the throttle wide open and it just goes. And I'm like, well, they're gripped up on those big old Nitto tires.
Yeah.
It's like, these are street tires.
Trust me, you can spin out there. I've done it.
Yeah. And I said, you go out there in one of these, it's a completely different experience. The tire makes just a world of difference when you've got sticky tires on it compared to something
There's a lot of things you can do
Yeah.
that are within the rules. Let me clarify. They're within the rules. There's a lot of things you can do that help with those cars, but at a certain point, it is just a Vic.
Yeah.
There's only so much, and that's also one of the things that's interesting. And I think that class in particular has been interesting because of how big it's gotten. It's fucking bananas how crazy big it's gotten. You're seeing Vic races like in like the Midwest now.
Yep.
And I remember at a certain point it was basically only in Florida and Indiana.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like there was
Started
no
in
Vic racing
Indiana.
there.
These cars stick around because they're these big old full frame
Oh yeah, we've
perimeter chassis
tested that
cars
frame a couple times.
and they
Actually.
you know, they survive closer. And also up north, like these and the pickup truck classes are big too because you have salt.
Yes,
Unibody cars
yes.
get eaten alive, so these are still around. But yeah, going back to Sportsman, when I was growing up, all late models looked like Sportsman before we had template cars. So Sportsman we have now are a lot like limited late models that they still run up in Michigan.
Yeah.
And a few other places. So, you know, that was kind of the pinnacle at the time. And now we've got the template body cars that go everywhere and whatnot. And I think it is getting harder and harder for tracks to have a super late model weekly class.
Yes.
We run them once a month at Auburndale, and that seems to work pretty well. But
You guys seem to have the scheduling down out there.
yeah, they made some changes to it this year that I liked. But yeah, that's the thing. The big classes, it's hard to run big classes all the time.
Correct.
But trying to have one premier class a night, and what we've started doing with the twin 50s that I really like is we qualify them before the heat races, and then at intermission we bring that class out and we have an autograph session. You know, everybody can come out, meet the drivers, see the cars. I talked to a bunch of drivers over down there. Then we line them up and go racing. Then we run all the local division features, and then run the second race, last race of the night.
That seems like the best way.
So
to
that
do it.
keeps people there to see all the local divisions race too. So they have a crowd, and it generates more interest in those classes too. And especially like if we have a really good first race, then people are going to want to stick around because they want to see more. Or if there's two drivers that get into it in the first race, they're going to want to see what happens when they come back out again.
Were you out there when Brexton and Kyle Busch were out there?
I was not. I didn't do the Legend Car
Legend car
Nationals.
race. I was just curious because that popped in my mind when you were talking about it.
Yeah, I worked during the day, so I wasn't able to do any of those events. But yeah,
Part of the reason I bring that up is because, you know, you schedule the races in a certain way so people stay there the whole night, and I've kind of noticed, at least as of recently, with with a lot of these NASCAR drivers and whatnot, they're having their kids run at these smaller local tracks like Auburndale or Citrus. I think that's hopefully that happens more, and that's going to help out a lot of these smaller tracks. Because I remember I was looking through and I see, Kyle Busch is hopping in a legend car at Auburndale. I'm like, it sounds like a Mad Lib that someone came up with, like Kyle Busch in the legend car at Auburndale. Like that, like it seems unreal. But I'm so excited that's happening because I feel like I'm seeing more of that recently.
Yeah, and anytime we can get any of those guys out to a race, and some people, I know the purists don't like it because they're like, oh, here's because this professional guy coming in to beat it. But back in the day, Kyle Busch used to come to Berlin Raceway in Martin, Michigan once a year.
Really?
They ran he named the race after himself. It was the Rowdy 251, the CRA Super Series race. There were always 30, 40 plus cars there. It was a big deal. And me at 17, I hate Kyle Busch. Always have. But I was there every week. I paid my $40 to get in and watch the race and stand there and flip him the bird when he went around in qualifying. But still, the place was packed, and they brought other people. David Stremme came and raced. Travis Pastrana came and raced one year. And, all those guys. Ross Kenseth, when he was coming up. I met Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott when they were coming up. The late models there.
That's why I wish they bring the SRX series back.
I went to the SRX race at Pensacola when they came, and that was a ton of fun. That was one of
that series to me did a good job of like you're combining the fact that you're taking these big names and you're putting them on these local small short tracks. Well, I guess I say local small. I mean, Eldora is a short track in my mind, even though people consider that to be like a major track. It's still a short track in my mind. It's just a very well-known short track.
And what I loved about SRX so much, and they went away from it the third season, which I was disappointed in when they had the local hero that was in. Like when at Five Flags we had Bubba Pollard in the field, and getting to see Bubba Pollard race well with Bobby Labonte, Elio Castroneves, Bill Elliott, Michael Waltrip, and all those guys. I think Joseph Newgarden was in that race too. I think.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan Hunter-Reay, and just bringing all the guys from the different. I rock on a short track. I loved SRX.
No, I think that was a fantastic idea, and it's unfortunate that they aren't. Yeah. It's unfortunate they aren't doing it, but
yeah.
But they, they're. It's tough for series like that to survive. I remember like when that first came out, people were like, "Oh, is this eventually gonna be like a?" Excuse me. Is this eventually going to be like oh, they're going to replace NASCAR? I'm like, they're not going to replace NASCAR.
That was never their intent.
That was never going to happen. But I remember everybody was talking about it.
Yeah, it had the 6 races. I think was perfect. It was the right amount of gimmick. It had the right amount of gimmicky stuff with it to keep it interesting.
The best was the commentating.
Oh yeah,
that was my favorite part of it. How crazy is it that you call up the driver under a green flag and ask them stupid ass questions from Clint Boyer, and he's like, "Dude, I'm trying to fucking drive. Can you leave me alone?" That was. I remember sitting there watching one of the Eldora races where I think they called up. I think it was Tony Stewart over, and he's like, "Dude, I'm fucking racing." He's like, "Can you leave me alone?"
Because they didn't have radios in those cars, so like they didn't have. It was just one way, like race receiver, like we have. They did not have spotters and everything like that. So no, that was funny.
That was one of the funniest. Like it's so simple and it's so great. It's like that. Like with that style of racing, it's to me it's very interesting to see a lot of drivers like that trying to start up these smaller series. Because I've noticed that recently. There's a lot of people trying to start up these smaller touring series. I know, like, there was kind of a handful of guys, at least last year, talking about trying to start up a Crown Vic touring series. And I know there's a handful of track owners who don't want that because they just want them to race at their tracks. But I think a lot of those owners also need to understand that I'm going to race at multiple tracks. I mean, I'm going to primarily race at the track that's closest to me, don't get me wrong, but I'm also going to race at different ones. I know there's a number of track owners who they prefer, you just run this one track and this one track only. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like,
well, that's things you have, and especially you see it with most with Crown Vics, where you have your hardcore group of like 15, they're there every week.
Oh yeah.
But then there's always people coming and going.
Oh yeah.
Every week coming from different places. So.
Yeah. It's a weird one, that's for sure. I mean, I'm particularly with that class just because of how big it's been getting. I feel like it's going to get to a point where it's going to eventually turn into basically a street stock class.
That's just the life cycle of any.
We're gonna start allowing 3 valves into it. And
Yeah.
I mean, we got one right. Yeah, I was about to say we got one right there. He just pointed to it, but it's it's such an interesting class to me just because of how cheap of a class it is, how easy it is to run. And I know I've been going on about it, but I always bring it up because that's how I got into it, was that home race. And I distinctly remember I was out at Showtime on a Wednesday night. I ran into James Wozniak, and he's like, I was looking at a couple of I think it was probably Grigsby's Vicks, because those are the ones that were always sitting out front. And we're looking at him. He's like, "Hey, you interested in that?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just think it's cool." And James goes, "Get a fire suit. I'll see you in a few weeks." I'm like, I've never met you before.
Yeah.
And that was I'm forever grateful to him for letting me. I got to test his car on Friday night, and then from there I was hooked, and obviously bought Jesse's and went from there. Which that guy is, goddamn, Veltman's nuts.
He is. I've got to know Jesse a little bit.
I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people consider him controversial, but you know what? He can wheel a fucking race car. I'll give him that. He can wheel a race car like
putting on a show, which that's what I like as a commentator. Is when I've got
he drives differently too.
When I've got somebody like that in the field that I know is gonna.
He's nuts. And I remember because up until recently, everyone's like, "Oh, his car is super cheated up. His car's because that's what they all say. They always say, "Oh, his car's cheated up." I'm like, okay. And now he's been hopping in the 27 car. He's been hopping in Jason's car, and he goes out and wins. I'm like, well, you can't. Like it's like, well, you say he's cheated up, but then whatever car he hops in, he seems to win. So which one is it? It's only one or the other. It's like, well, you say he's cheated up, and then he hops in basically any car he hops, and he seems to place top 3 or win. Like, that's just talent.
Yeah.
He's got incredible talent with the Vicks. I've never seen. Well, I have seen him run a street stock once. I've never seen him run anything else, but he is a very good talent with it. And there's a handful of guys who are like that. There's, oh Lord, I can't remember his name. It's a beat up blue car. He runs mostly dirt up north. He ran at Freedom Factory.
Oh, I remember you talking about. I can't remember his name.
He ran the
car's name is Blueberry. I can't remember the driver's name.
Yes, he ran the King of the Crown Vic race, that 10,000 one at Citrus.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot remember his name. Which, speaking of, they got that. I'm sure you saw this coming up. That $100,000 to win race. I feel like a lot of people were saying, like, oh, don't go run that because there's going to be so many people. But that's what they said about the King of the Crown Vic race at Citrus, and like 15 guys showed up.
Yeah.
And that was it.
I mean, it is what it is. When there's money on the line, people are going to get aggressive. But that's the point. You know, we want, as an announcer, that's what I want, is I want guys running with everything.
You want aggressiveness.
Yeah.
You want there's a line. You want them on that line between aggressiveness and good racing, where it's like you're not leaning too much one way where you're just wrecking guys, and like I've been in races where it's a 25 lap race that took 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there banging my head on the steering wheel, and I'm like, dude, can we just get this done? So
yeah, like last night we had a great battle in both our Pro Late model features between Jason Vale and Cody Stickler. And they were side by side, swapping the lead back and forth, moving each other out of the way a little bit, but not running each other over. And
But that's what you want to see, and especially with guys like Cody Stickler. Like, that's another guy, fantastic driver. Stickler's fantastic. By the way, if he ends up listening, I want to have you on here. Yeah. We've never met before, but I'd love to have you on here. I know you by reputation. I think you're a great driver. But you want to see that kind of, because a lot of people. There's the racing purists. You brought up the racing purists who say, oh, you don't want to, you can't touch anybody or that any kind of thing. Like it has to be pure, clean pass. I'm like, well, it's short track. You're not going to have that.
Yeah.
Like that's the nature of that type of racing. It was not meant to be like that. A bump and run's one thing. Throwing someone in the wall's another.
But for the people in the stands, they want to see that, and fans love a good crash too. Like,
yeah. Well, that's always been kind of the.
I was gonna say when my wife comes to the races with me, that's what she wants to see.
That's always been the point of contention, hasn't it? It's like you want to get people out there to watch the racing, but all they want to see is the crash.
Or there's plenty of people going to Bowman Gray just to watch the fights. Just like people go to hockey to watch the fights.
If I look and I see like
there was one last night.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
Between who?
I didn't see who it was, but it was in a late model race.
Oh, it was a late model guy?
Yeah. Two guys says somebody spins somebody out, they collect them all, and they get out of the car and start beating the hell out of each other.
usually higher cost of race car, more punches thrown is kind of the ratio you go with.
Yeah.
The more money I got to put into it, the more punches I'm putting into your face.
Yeah. No, it's
I don't fight people ever. Like
No.
I will be entirely honest. There have been times where the thought has crossed my mind, but one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was, I think it was it's probably Marty actually. Fucking Marty, dude. I always had good advice. I can't. Dude, that guy always got good advice. It was probably him who he's like you gotta walk around, cool off. You know, like take a walk, cool off, and like even in the last race I ran, like I did that. Bad race. It wasn't even really anybody's fault. It wasn't my fault. It was just a racing incident. It wasn't the other person's fault. And I just walked off, and I'm like, all right, phew, you need to chill out. Because I noticed that is a lot of guys, especially, my only thing has always been like, dude, you know, I understand getting into a fight over something, but most of the time it's like, it's not worth it. Like, you're just going to get a track, man. It doesn't gain you anything.
No.
Like, you know.
Yeah, it's the heat of the moment stuff. You know, my uncle raced, and he told me, put that helmet on and drop 15 IQ points. You know, so.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's what he says.
I'd say closer to like 30. Let's double that number. But
that's what he always said. And,
you're pretty close to that, yeah. I mean, it's just the nature of it. It's like hockey. I mean, you know, it's the same general idea.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I don't want to see a fight, but also like it gets my crowd fired up.
Well, you know that they want to see it. That's the thing.
They want to see it. So you know,
it's that point. That's racing's weird because it's like, you know, if you go to see a football game, you want to see someone make a touchdown. Go see a hockey game, you want to see someone make a goal. If you go to watch racing, you don't care. So a lot of times, a short track, you don't care if it finishes. You just want to see some cool shit. You just want to see someone wreck, and it's like it's a very different thing people go to watch a lot of the time. And I saw it firsthand because a lot of the times when I went and brought friends out there to watch the races, I would take them to stuff like the school bus stuff.
Oh yeah,
like that was their favorite stuff. They loved the school buses. They loved like the figure eights because you don't see that anywhere else.
Figure eight. I fell in love with figure eight when I started going to Showtime, and that is something I wish we did more of at Auburndale is figure eight.
Right.
But the most impressive thing about figure eight races, especially when we get the outlaw guys, and there's 30 of them. I called the biggest Southern World Finals ever was at Showtime. I think we started 32 cars. It was crazy.
I believe I watched that race. It's like 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, it was crazy. And when you could go an entire race and they're crossing every single lap and nobody ever hits.
It's unbelievable.
That to me is just it's so impressive. And
that's a lot of people have always, because I'll admit when I first saw figure eight, I was in my mind, I was like, that's not real racing. And then you kind of talk to some of the figure eight guys. I'll bring up Veltman again because that's another guy who he's a big figure eight guy. And when he was telling me how he kind of runs it, and then especially you watch the outlaw guys, then you go, oh fuck, that's racing.
Yeah, those outlaw guys have just about into it as much as some of the super late model guys.
Oh yeah, the money they put into it. It's crazy.
But no, that really grabbed my attention, and that was always something to bring new people to, was figure eight.
Figure eight's always been a weird one to me because I personally, I can't tell you how many times I have walked up to register, give my license, and like Austin or Kyle will be like, so you figure eight, right? I'm like, no, not. They keep trying to get me to do it, but I won't do it.
Yeah.
It's just because probably he will murder me. But you know, it's such a different form. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, it's not real racing. I'm like, it is racing. It is 100% racing, and it requires a lot of skill. It's just you know, it's not a gimmick. I wouldn't say it's a gimmick. It's just different.
Mm-hmm. It's a different set of skills.
It's a different set of skills. That's the best way to put it. Because a lot of people are like, oh, it's a gimmick. I'm like, it's not a gimmick. It's a completely different set of skills, and just people kind of think it's silly because of the idea of like, oh, run a figure eight. And I'm like, well, it's first of all fucking dangerous, but and second of all, it like the way I was talking to Sean Senakosov one time, and he was
another great figure eight racer.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's probably one of the best in Florida at least. And they were kind of explaining how they go through the corners where like once you get the center of 1, 2, or 3, and 4, you kind of look left, and if you're even with someone, then you kind of back off or slow down. But then at that point, you're like, okay, if they backed off or slowed down, then you kind of got to judge from there. Like, what do you do? Mm-hmm. And it's just it's kind of like a cat and mouse game up until you get to the X.
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, that's very interesting to watch once you know that side of it.
Yeah, and I've done some figure eight on iRacing,
Right.
We did a race. Tyler Landis put on a race.
You
with a bunch
guys,
of
I was about to say, you guys run like a series, don't you?
We did on a, we used to. Brian Scalise and I started a thing called Florida Short Trackers.
Right.
And we had a group of guys that we raced. I think we did 8 weeks the first time. We just ran street stocks at a bunch of different tracks. And it was a lot of fun. And then we did one a little bit ago where we used the NASCAR 87s.
I saw that.
you
posted something about that,
Yes.
didn't you? Yes, I saw that.
I actually won a race.
Wow.
But we did it as open setup. So like that was actually a lot of fun. I got on a Discord chat with Brian and we would get on and I learned so much about how
I
to
want to
set
get
the car
into
up.
it. And then I pull up the prices of sim rigs. And
Yeah.
and
Well,
I'm like, oh,
I've got a computer and a desk. You know, I don't have the motion simulator, multiple screen stuff that some guys have.
You don't need anything like that.
You know, I don't need it. But I've beat guys that have way more into it than I do.
Oh, yeah.
But but doing some of the figure eight stuff, especially we were running NASCAR modifieds. Is what we use for figure eight cars. Closest thing to the Pro
I saw
8.
there's a guy making a. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be wrong about this, but if there's a guy making a Crown Vic like racing game currently.
Yes.
It's like something like that. Like
Yes. His name's Stuart Cowie. He's from over in
Cowie.
England.
I remember I keep seeing posts about it because Jesse and Jason and all them.
Some of
keep
them are in
posting
it,
about
yeah. So he made a bunch of games related to stock car racing and banger racing, which if you think we're wild, watch some banger racing from over in England.
Bangers
Those
are
guys
crazy,
are a different
rally's
kind of
crazy.
crazy. But I played some of his games. He's just an independent guy who makes video games,
Right.
and they were really good. And then he somehow got into the Outlaw Figure 8 thing. And so there's a game out there called Outlaw 8s. You can get
I've
it.
seen
It's
that
got
one,
Citrus, Auburndale, Showtime there on it, and a bunch of other Speedrome, all the big figure 8 tracks. And in doing that is how we got into the game's going to be called Short Track Showdown. I believe it's coming out this summer. It's going to be Crown Vics, open wheel modifieds, and they were legend cars. And then he ran into copyright trademark issues. So now it's a little bit of a different looking car because they're calling it Mini Cup something. I don't know, but.
I kept seeing posts about it because, and I was talking to somebody about it, but I kept seeing Jesse and Jason and then post about it.
Yeah, they're in it, and I know we got some of our local mini stock guys are in it. The Appling Brothers cars are in the little mini cup class.
Hey, when I think mini stock, I think Appling.
Yeah. So,
But-
getting ready to figure 8. It's like we're coming
You
around.
mind if I see their?
Oh yeah, my
you're good.
bottle opener. Yep.
Yeah, because I'm a moron. I forgot to bring one.
I'll just leave it out on the table now.
But
So the biggest thing is you're coming around the corner and you can see the guys coming the other way, and you've got kind of a rhythm. You know, like how much time. I mean, you can see how much the gap is changing as you're coming. But what happens is if you spin out in the corner, or if you have to check up to let somebody through, now next time you're coming to the X, I have no idea what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
So
like I said,
to
the people say it's not racing. It is 100% racing, and
Yeah.
I will admit, like I was one of those people when I first started watching short track stuff. I was one of those people who's like, this isn't racing. I was one of those people, and then I watched it and I got to know it. I'm like, damn, this is nuts. When I first got into it, I said, this isn't racing, this is stupid, this is ridiculous. And then the more I learned about it and the more I got into it, I changed my mind, and I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, these guys have a totally different skill set from me that, like, I don't know if I could do. Maybe I could do it. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it one day. I do a school bus figure 8.
Yeah.
I do a school bus before I do a Vic.
Yeah.
I've asked Austin before. He's like, you got to do Vic first. I'm like, fuck.
I have been told by the figure 8 guys that school bus is actually a good one to do first because they're so slow.
Yeah, but
have a lot more time to
I imagine
react.
they're harder. I imagine they're harder to drive, though.
I mean,
and
I've
also
never
they come
driven
apart.
one, so.
I mean, I imagine they're harder to drive just because there's so much weight and there's like they come apart. It seems like every school bus race I've watched, a couple of them blow up.
Yeah.
So, because they're not meant for that. I mean, but I've always thought about doing it. I'm like, maybe one of these days, It's just I'm not buying a school bus.
No. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that is one thing I do miss about being at Showtime is all the figure 8 stuff. But
yeah, it's every week pretty much right now.
yeah, every week. Yeah, we've got a big season lined up at Auburndale. We've got a UARA super late model race coming up later on in the year that we're all really excited about. We're going to have the John Graham 100 for the open wheel modifieds up in October. Yeah, it's been a big transition between being at Showtime moving to Auburndale because there's a lot more eyes on us over at Auburndale.
I was about to say, Auburndale tends to get a lot more I say TV time, obviously not TV, but like TV time. It seems to get a lot
that
more.
kind of stuff. And whereas it seemed like at Showtime is run by a real dedicated group of about 6 people.
Yes.
So they were, a lot of times they were just kind of happy that I was there just doing my thing.
Yeah.
Auburndale has been a big step up. It's required me to do a lot more work than I was doing before, and I already felt like I was doing a lot when I was at Showtime. So, and it's made the reason I went over there was I was not unhappy at Showtime.
Yeah.
I have nothing bad to say about my time at Showtime.
I was planning on asking you about the reasons for you leaving anyway. So go ahead. So.
I wasn't looking to leave. I had an offer come in. I went over there and filled in for a couple nights when Steve wasn't there, when we weren't racing.
I met him once.
Yes.
At I met him one time in my entire life. It was just random. I was at the Coke 0400 at Daytona, and I was walking through with my girlfriend through the fan zone, and this guy stops. He's like, "Hey, are you a driver at Showtime?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm the announcer at Auburndale. I recognize you." I'm like,
Yeah,
"I've never met you in my life."
But yeah, and I knew Steve because we all do the Hot Mic show together. Me, Steve, and Ryan from New Smyrna. And I was perfectly happy at Showtime. I have nothing bad to say about my time at Showtime. I had a good experience working with Robert Yoho, but I felt like I got to a point where I was my own show at Showtime. I was very rarely did anyone ask anything of me, and I was like, okay, I've gotten as good as I'm going to get here, and I was perfectly fine.
You were great there
to be there the rest of my life.
Right.
But I got this offer to come in and try and do something a little different, something that's like kind of like on a little bit of a bigger stage, and so I decided to go for it. And my first couple of weeks were an absolute mess over there, but we're really hitting a stride from the start of this year.
Is there any like ideas or things you want to do that you haven't yet, or like anything like coming up that you wanted to try to do as far as like, maybe different types of interviews or whatnot, or?
I'd love to do. We've started doing driver intros.
That's good.
That's something I've always wanted to do. That's something Hollywood used to do back at Owasso. Every feature would come out and he'd start at the back of the grid and walk his
no matter
way up.
if it's because everyone does them for you always do them for late models and whatnot, but nobody does them for everybody.
And I understand when we've got 6 features a night, that's time that we don't necessarily have.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to do something like that. I've wanted to do more of the TV stuff.
The TV stuff I think is important.
And we had, when we did the Outlaw Figure 8 race at the start of the year at Auburndale, and we had the full rig. I had a camera guy following me around. I had headsets. I had talkback line. I had the producer in my ear. It was something I wanted to do. It was a really cool experience. I hope to do more of that. I have always wanted to get on and do a radio style broadcast like they do on MRN.
That would be
with
great.
like 4 other guys, or like when they go to the road course where there's guys all at different parts of the track, and
I'll be honest, like I've always wanted to do commentating myself. Like I thought about it over the past few years. It's like I'd love to do that, because I think, for one thing, I think you do it. Part of the reason I think you do it so well is because you do, at least from my perspective, you really try to keep track of what's going on specifically between all the drivers and the races. You really you can tell the difference between you and a lot of other commentators.
Yeah, when it started. I've always been like that, even when I was a fan.
Right.
And
I wanted to
know. And it's like, because my wife said to me when she was encouraging me to go after the thing at Showtime, she's like, when we go to the races, it always happens. You say something, and 2 seconds later, the announcer says it. Or when we're watching NASCAR, the same thing happens. And she goes, it's like, so that's. When I first started, it was like Jake Wilson and I were talking, and he was like, he was talking about how we used to, have races on his, on the living room floor with the toy cars and, pretend to use Eli Gold. And I was like, I used to do that too. Or I'd make Gran Turismo play itself. When no one was home, I'd sit in the basement and do that and commentate it. And he's like, see, you've been doing it your whole life. It's just people are actually listening now.
Yeah.
And, and it's great. So now I'm out here talking to people who are actually interested, as opposed to, talking to my wife about it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But, but yeah, I love getting all that sponsor stuff. I do it, A, because I think it's important, B, I enjoy doing that stuff. I enjoy knowing the different makes and models of all the mini stocks and things. That's just something that I like to do because I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
And
hey, nerds are the ones who do everything. Now,
yeah,
so
but the best piece of advice I ever received was from Jake Wilson. Was to call it like you're on the radio. Like no one in the stands can see the race. They can only hear you, and that's just what I've always tried to do. And
I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I know I've said this 3 times now, but you put in a lot more effort than a lot of announcers do. Like you really do. Like even if it doesn't seem like much to you, it seems like a lot to us. Like from a driver's perspective, just you going out there and even doing these little driver interviews and stuff like that, like that's great. And the fact you do your little weekly podcast, or your live one, where it's just a recap of what happened. Like that's great. Like stuff like that, you get like I can't catch it every time, but I try to listen to it when I can.
Yeah. Well, they're on, and and one of the reasons we started that was actually Steve Darling, who's my co-announcer at Auburndale. Yeah. It was his idea, and he reached out to me. I was at Showtime at the time, with Ryan from New Smyrna and Austin who was at Citrus at the time, and the thought behind it was we want to support local short track racing, and we understand that, especially the state of Florida, the tracks don't seem to want to get along with each other. No. And that's just the way that it is. But we all do, and we all want to see short track racing succeed. So that was why. So we've got here 4 different tracks coming together. We're all talking about what's going on at our tracks, and then the 4 of us talk shit about NASCAR for the last 30 minutes of the show, and that's. But one of and we've got, not a ton of people watch it live. A lot of people watch it after. You only have 30 days now. Facebook changed their thing. They don't keep stuff past 30 or 90 days.
Have you ever thought about just like putting it on YouTube or something?
I have thought about it. I was looking into trying to figure out how I could rip it and put it on like Apple Podcasts or whatever, just so if people wanted to listen to it.
We can try to help you out with that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're more than willing to.
Yeah. But what that also did was it got me, like I didn't know any other announcers other than Jake. Mm-hmm. So now the 4 of us all know each other. We have a Facebook Messenger thread that is always active between the 4 of us, talking back and forth.
I think the tracks working with each other is a very important thing.
It is, and because what it's done is, that's how I co-announced at Auburndale a bunch of times, just because we were off. So I went up there, and Steve was like, "Oh, come in the booth and do a late model race with me," and I got a chance to go up to New Smyrna at the start of the year. I went for Governor's Cup, and it got rained out. So Ryan had me back for the Red Eye 50-50, and that was a lot of fun. I did get to spend a night in the tower at East Bay one night with their announcer, I'm so mad at myself I can never remember his name because he's incredible.
I couldn't remember his name either.
He's a great announcer, and I love getting to see how other announcers do it because you learn things. Like I have a whole stat spreadsheet and everything that I keep for all the classes, and that is entirely ripped off of what the guy at East Bay.
So wait, that's what because I was curious about kind of your method. So you have a spreadsheet of what, just like a?
I have everybody listed in numerical order, sponsor, make and model of the car for like pure stocks and mini stocks and whatnot.
Do you ever put notes about like if there's something interesting about that driver?
I do.
Okay.
So on my sheet I have number, name, hometown, make and model of the car, sponsors. Then I have a section for any notes, like if somebody's a past champion or if something happened or blah, blah. And then I have appearances, wins, and top 5s and their best finish on the year. Okay. And I have a big Google sheet that I have, and there's this page for every class.
Are there particular drivers who you'll kind of like run into in the pits? Maybe you don't know them, like newer guys will be like, okay, I'm going to focus more on this guy, or I'm going to focus less on this guy, or.
The biggest things for me is if I see something. I walk around the pits. I do 2 interviews usually a week.
I know you've done 2 with me, and I hate, but I did both.
But I walk around the pits for 3 hours.
Oh yeah.
Just observing. I'll talk to people, or I'll see, so-and-so they're just wrenching on the car, thrashing on it, something's wrong. Or I'll see, I remember LJ Grimm changing an engine in a modified at Showtime with a tow truck.
I remember that too.
In the pits, that kind of stuff. And so I can kind of get some of that information to build stories, or if I might go out and talk to a new driver, or you'll see some veteran driver that hasn't raced in forever is helping somebody new out. And so people see me, I wander around the pits, I'm
Oh, I
And
remember.
I also get my sponsor info, but like that way too. But I'm just taking the temperature, seeing what's going on, and looking for stories. And
Is there a particular driver right now at Auburndale that you think is going to be like a big phenom in their class right now? Like someone you see, like maybe nobody's really thinking about him right now, but you personally, just from observing, because obviously you as you were just saying, you observe a lot of the drivers in a lot of the races, that you think is going to end up being like a lot bigger in whatever particular class they're in.
two drivers I've kind of got my eye on right now is Evan Bookmiller in Legend Cars.
I've heard. I've not met him in person, but actually I have met him, but I doubt he'd fucking remember. But
Yeah,
but I know of him and his dad and whatnot.
That kid has car control unlike anything.
He's very
I've
good in
seen.
Legends.
He's incredible in Legends cars, and I think when
very good legend car driver.
when he's ready to move up, he's gonna win. That kid's gonna win a lot of races. And the other one we've got right now, we've got a driver named Nico Garano who runs Crown Vics.
I've heard the name. I don't know.
He's came to Showtime a couple of times, and they've gone up and ran at New Smyrna with the Bomber Bees. He right now, we've had 3 races. He's finished second, and third.
Damn.
He's just a kid, but he's
How old is he?
he's a teenager. I don't know his exact age.
I was say I was a teenager when I started racing Vics.
So,
I got fun of it. I got Kid Danger put on the back of my car.
but and he was down there. They broke a tire out in practice, and he was working on it himself for like hours in the pits yesterday. And they've been faster. He won a race at Citrus. He was running up front. I think he was running second at New Smyrna a couple weeks ago and got taken out. But he's somebody. Once again, somebody who's got a lot of car control, who I think is really gonna move up.
Well, I'm always curious to see, especially from like an announcer or like an outsider's perspective, someone who's not on track, to see who they think is going to be kind of up there. Because, you kind of see it differently from when you're in the pits, where if you're driving, obviously you're not paying attention to the other guys running.
Yeah.
So maybe in practice you'll notice like, okay, this guy's like, I remember like probably about halfway through last year was when I was really like, when I was looking at Jesse Ashley, when I was like, that guy's gonna win a race this year.
Yeah.
He was one of those where I was like, Jesse's like, he's got the resources, he's got the car, like it's just a matter of seat time. And I'm sure you noticed the same thing.
I did, with him and his brother, and they first came out, and a couple races in, you see guys start moving up, start running closer to the front.
That's the thing is, I wish because when I started doing this, it was, obviously my dad, he's a road course racing guy. I'm sure people have seen the shots behind you. There's a couple Mustangs. That's what those are.
Yeah, I came in and saw SCCA stickers.
Yeah, some SCCA stuff. That's his world. We never really did oval track. That was what I like. I was a big NASCAR fan. I was a big Matt Kenseth fan. And that's what got me into it. So when I bought a Vic and I started doing this, like we kind of were flying by the seat of our pants and just going along with it. And there's several guys who helped me out with it. Marty's obviously one of the big ones. There's so many guys over the years. Marty, Wozniak, like I couldn't name all of them. Ducky, obviously. He's been especially the last year or so, Ducky's been a major help. Talon and all of them, like they're all great. We all help each other out. So, and I've kind of noticed, I wish I had kind of what Jesse had initially when I started racing. I was like, damn, I wish I had Ducky and all these guys right when I started who like had all this like short track experience. Been doing it for 30 years, and like, the only guys we know out there who do it for so long is the Ludeckers. Like my dad knows Pat and whatnot, and we don't. I didn't know many people out there when I first started going out there. And I've told this to people before. I remember I was out at Freedom Factory, and we pulled up on the front stretch. Everybody parked. We're doing, everyone's coming out. It was on the Halloween night. They were doing the trunk or treat. Yeah. And these two kids walked up like, how do you get in the race? I'm like, well, do what you just did now. And I always give this advice to people, just go up and talk, because that's what I did. Yeah. Like, if it's go find out when a practice night is, go out, talk to the drivers. Because we will pretty much always talk to you and be like, hey, if you got questions, ask them. Like, that's what someone did for me, so I want to do it for them.
Absolutely, and that's what I tell people too. Oh, I want to race. Well, show up on practice night, get a band, and go back there and just start talking to people.
I will always say there's the sucky half of that is that there's always that money barrier.
Yes.
That's the sucky part about racing, is there will always be that money barrier, but if you at least want to learn more, honestly, every single driver, if you want to get into this and get into short track, let's say you have the money and you could do it.
Yeah.
Like, literally, buy a pit pass on a Saturday night, go out, just introduce yourself. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm interested in racing this class. We will talk to you.
Yeah.
Like, I personally absolutely would. If anyone comes up to me on a race night or a practice night and says, hey, I was curious about this class, I want to race this, I'll be like, yeah, what do you want to know? Here's X, Y, and Z. Because someone did that for me, and that's what got me into it. So I'd absolutely do that for anybody.
Yeah, and it's the same way on the other side of things, or like with commentating. I mean, that's how I started. It's like, hey, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And you just do it.
That's the best way to get people into it is you, because I obviously, it depends on, I guess not the context, but like it depends on kind of the I guess the context situation, but whether or not people are into coming into, I'm losing my train of thought. Shoot. But there's my point. My general point was that a lot of people are kind of afraid to, hey, I want to go talk to this driver. I want to get into this. They think it's too much. I'm like, just do it. Just go up and talk and do it, because that's what I did and that's what got me into it. And I couldn't imagine myself not doing it now. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't think of a time when I wasn't obsessed with racing. But, the fact that it's such a huge part of my life right now and getting to be involved in it is just something that I never dreamed in a million years would ever happen to me.
Would you ever consider coming back for maybe just like a one-off at Showtime?
If we're open, if it's a night when we're not racing, I'm happy to go.
July 4th? Come on. I don't know what's coming up recently, but I don't know what's coming up soon. But
they grabbed me. It was I came with my wife to watch the Outlaw Figure 8 deal at the start of the year at Showtime, and on the first night, I was walking back from the concession stand, and Austin Dunham comes running down the stairs.
Austin,
to
man,
me,
that guy's something
and
else.
He goes, I love Austin. He's a great
Austin's
dude.
awesome.
But he comes up to me and goes, I need one thing. I was like, what? And he goes, can you at least do the invocation? Because I'm going to screw it up. I was like, okay, I'll go up and do the invocation for you. But yeah, no, and I consider myself like to be I am so lucky that I get to do this.
Oh, yeah.
And which is why, like, I don't get involved with racetrack drama, like on social media. I just don't.
I've always said it's like high school cheerleaders.
Yeah.
It's like,
and I'm like, I just don't get involved with it. And because I am so happy just to be at the racetrack every Saturday. It doesn't matter if there's 10 cars in the pits or 300. And just the fact that I get to be there and do it, something that as a kid, I never thought I would ever get the chance to do. I never thought I would ever get to be involved with racing. And so, like, I don't understand people leaving the racetrack mad. Like, I mean, drivers, yes, but your stuff got tore up or whatever.
I've never taken someone to the track who's never been there, and they left mad. Every single person I've ever taken there, just watched, who's never seen it before, loved it. Mm-hmm. That's always been my indicator that, like, you can take anyone to a short track.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's because I worked in theater and live entertainment for a decade, and that's just such a completely different world from short track racing. And back in the day when I was a showrunner and we were running shows, we would do 2 shows a day on Saturday and Sunday. And so we'd be on the break between shows, and I was not part of the union, so us non-union crew people, they just shove us in like a closet somewhere, right. And we've got a 2-hour break and people are like asleep and whatnot, and I've got my laptop up watching the NASCAR race, whatever, and people would come up to me and go, "You bet money on that?" I go, "No." They go, "Well, we just don't understand how anybody could be so excited about car racing unless there was money involved." And I'm like, "No,
It's funny because you can actually do now through like My Race Pass and stuff. You can bet on like fucking Showtime races.
You can, yeah. I do the fantasy. I don't put money on it, but I do.
There's all the fantasy stuff.
Steve and I do the fantasy every week. I won last night.
Do you?
But
do you have a group?
No. I just think it's fun to go through and.
I gotta start doing that because I saw they started doing that for all the My Race Pass stuff. So
yeah.
Hey, that's another way to get people into it. Like
yeah,
that was the whole goal with everything. Is I always tell people is do absolutely anything you can to get the average everyday person who maybe comes out to the track into coming to watch the races. Mm-hmm. Like that has to be the goal for everybody.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that, you don't got nothing. So,
right.
Especially with tracks like if you look at a track like Showtime or Auburndale Citrus, like that is entirely all short tracks are entirely reliant on fans. You know, I mean I guess Freedom Factory is an exception because they got the YouTube thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, we need to get people more interested in, you know, they need to find a specific driver or a specific class they like, and I think that's the way to do it. I think that's the way to go about it, in my opinion, from talking to people that I brought out there. I think that's the way people get interested.
Yeah, and it's like bringing new people to the racetrack is the most important thing that we can do, which is why, like, when a lot of people online like to complain when NASCAR tries to go into different markets, like when they were going out to LA to do the Clash.
You kind of have
or
to.
We're going back to Mexico this year.
Even if it doesn't work, you have to at least try it, because otherwise you're not going to know.
And it puts more eyes on the sport because, like, racing, I think, benefited greatly from COVID because we came back first.
That's
and
true.
There was nothing else to watch,
true.
and we had so many new eyes on the sport.
Oh, yeah.
And bringing new people to the racetrack, and when you bring people to short track for the first time, because there's this stereotype of, it's just rednecks driving around in circles, blah, blah, blah. It's so much.
It's rich rednecks driving around in circles. You got it wrong. It's rich rednecks driving around in circles.
Sometimes, yeah. But there's more to it than that, and it is exciting, and it's just a whole experience more than just the racing. And, you know, my wife's favorite part about it is the people watching sometimes. But
yeah, I believe it.
But, like, you know, my wife Angela is the first woman I dated who actually would come to the racetrack with me.
That's how you know that's the one.
And that's how I know it's the one. And when we got married, the Wednesday before our wedding, we were still doing the Wednesday night stuff at Showtime.
Wow.
Was
so
like,
you were at the track before
I was at the track right before. Yes, I was.
The day before your wedding.
I was like, so, yeah, just bring us something new. And she was just like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And it's like we've brought some of her friends out before, too. And it's just, you know, even you might not make somebody into, you know, a diehard instantly who's going to be there every week, but just getting more eyes on the sport is what we need. And it's one of the last, like, real, like, authentic group experiences that there are.
That's the biggest thing. And then you have the other half of it, which is I don't know what you do for that with the real estate side of it, of a lot of places just buying up land around tracks and building up stuff around tracks. Because it used to be, you know, obviously all these tracks were built out in the middle of nowhere when they were built. And now the stuff's getting built around. I mean, Freedom Factory is the biggest example. Yeah. Around here, locally, that's the biggest example is Freedom Factory with that entire, like, I remember, like Dad and I used to go down to the gun range down there and driving past there when I was like 8 or 9 or 10, and there was nothing out there. There's nothing out on that road. There's Manatee Gun and Archery. If you go down another 10 or 15 minutes down the road, that's where Manatee Gun and Archery Club is, away from the racetrack. Yeah, and,
I figured there was a gun club out there because I could hear all the shots.
So whenever we go shooting, we go out there. But you used to drive past and there's nothing out there. And then in the past, like, 3 or 4 years, it's crazy. It's like it's like it just popped up. There's houses, suburbs, Publixes. It's nuts.
It's, you know, it's a problem all over the state of Florida. But it's excuse me. But, like, the advantage that you have at Showtime and at Auburndale is they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Auburndale is out in the middle of nowhere.
Auburndale's middle of nowhere.
Showtime, you're in this industrial part.
Well, Showtime, they got declared, correct me if I'm wrong, they got declared a historical monument, so technically they're pretty much good. Yeah.
But, like, and, you know, I understand people not wanting to hear it, but also, like, because, like, anytime, I haven't been to Citrus in a while, but I would go to Citrus every once in a while with my wife, and we would, like, make a weekend out of it. Because there's a lot of fun stuff to do up in the Inverness area. Yeah. And so, like, we'd be downtown on Friday night going out to dinner, and you can hear the racetrack. Okay. Which doesn't bother me. I like that. Depending
on how cold or windy it is, you can hear the racetrack from my house, and I live 20 minutes from Showtime.
Yeah.
But they, like places like Freedom Factory, because you brought up like you understand not wanting to hear the noise, but places like that, you build a house next to a racetrack, there's going to be noise. From what I understand, they have some sort of agreement where if you buy a house in there, you just have to sign some sort of agreement where you can't complain about the noise. And they're like, oh, this will fix it. And I'm like, well, but what happens when those people sell the house to the next people? I'm like, does that agreement carry over? Like, what's the deal with that?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but
yeah, exactly.
I've played one on stage before, but I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah. Well, that's always been my thing. Is that seems like a very, very temporary solution.
Yeah.
That's not going to fix things in the long term. If you build a suburb behind a racetrack, I'm sorry. I've never had any sympathy for people. It's like if you buy a house next to an airport, it's a fucking airport.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be noise. Like if you buy a house next to a racetrack and complain about noise, I'm going to throttle you. Like
yeah. It's well, and that was the big final barrier that held up NASCAR going back to the fairgrounds at Nashville.
Yeah, I know.
And
it was an old noise stuff.
Yeah, and they were working that out, and then there's a new governor new mayor got elected and doesn't want anything to do with it. But
really?
Yeah, so I
didn't know about
that's
this.
Probably dead. The administration changed in the new.
Wait, hold on. So are they tearing down the track?
No, it's just still going to be there. It's just not going to be NASCAR.
Because I know Junior was pushing pretty
They were
hard.
pushing on it, yeah. Well, and you also had a lot of people didn't understand. It seemed like I watched the city council meeting. Lots of people going like, they think, oh, NASCAR is going to race there. That means I'm going to have to listen to NASCAR every single day.
No.
And at the end, there's actually going to be there was going to be actually less on-track activity than there currently is.
Look,
but,
if you're going to
yeah.
if you're listening, people who go to city council meetings are like cuckoo. They're all nuts. If you
I
go
used
to
to work
city
for a
council
nonprofit.
meetings,
I have had to go to city council meetings.
They're all crazy.
Yeah.
It's all old people who go to
Yeah.
city council meetings. They're like 85. They got nothing better to do.
Yeah.
They're like, I got my social security check this morning. I'm gonna go to city council, bitch, and then go home. So
yeah, and that's one of the things that racetracks have always had to fight. But it's just
it's been worse recently.
Yeah, but we have to go in and fight back. That happened back in Michigan, where I'm from, Kalamazoo Speedway. They instituted a decibel regulation, and that track already requires mufflers, and there's a decibel meter in the booth, and if you're over it, you're getting black flagged.
Right.
But the limit the council was going to set was lower than like what regular street cars are required to have.
That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous, and they actually had to postpone the city council meeting because so many people showed up and in support of the racetrack. The fire marshal shut it down because there were too many people in the building.
That's insane.
So and they won. So when those things come up, we just have to fight them.
You're kind of done with it. So.
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
How long have we been going? Hour 45. Well, I think we can call it. So,
all right.
So it was great having you on.
Yeah.
Definitely listen to his podcast, weekly recap of everything short track racing in Florida.
Hot Mike Florida Racing.
Thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you, sir. Cheers.
Yeah.